Learning Ally is a proud sponsor of the Empowered Dyslexia podcast. Learning Ally, a nonprofit education organization, helps to transform the lives of struggling learners by delivering proven solutions that help students reach their potential. We have a heritage of supporting students with a reading deficit like dyslexia. Our award-winning human-read audiobook solution helps students in grades 3 through 12 access books they want and need to read to help them succeed. Visit www.learningally.org for more information.
The following content is not intended as a substitute for professional legal advice, medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your attorney, advocate, physician, or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding any medical or educational concerns.
Hello and welcome to Empowered Dyslexia. I'm Stephen Yearout, your host, and we're here to help you become a better informed partner in education. On this show, we discuss dyslexia and other related disorders. We talk about special education policy at the state, federal, and local level. We talk to experts in their fields and interventions that are out there. The thing I love the most is talking to those of us who have personal stories, personal journeys with dyslexia, with learning disabilities, to talk about how they worked through that struggle. Be sure to like us on Facebook and YouTube. Leave us a comment. We love to hear that we're on the right track. See if there's any information that you really are looking for. Every week, we ask that you go out and like I said, like us on Facebook and YouTube. We're on every YouTube channel that's out there, every audio version of our podcast. So if you go out there and you like Google Play, Stitcher, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast from, we're there. So today's topic is a lot of times we talk about life dreams and how those dreams tend to change and how we deal with changing those dreams throughout our life. That's the title to this, Life Dreams, a Personal Journey with Dyslexia. But first, we have a special guest here. So we have Kristen here, who is going to be our guest host today. Welcome, Kristen.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Absolutely. Can you tell our viewers and listeners a little bit more about yourself?
Absolutely. So I run a foundation called Advising Generation Z. We've been around for about 9 years, and we specifically work with kids who are getting in trouble. So that's kids that are in either alternative schools, detention centers, teen and truancy court, and that's really our focus in giving them the leadership skills that they need so that they can really become the successful humans that we know that they can be.
That is amazing that you're doing that, and thank you so much for working with our youth. And what's important there is we already know that the youth that you're working with, there's a lot of those youth that have learning disabilities that are undiagnosed and unsupported. And the reason why they're incarcerated, the reason why they're in truancy, the reason why they're there is they don't feel successful. They don't have that place that they can go, school, and feel like they're actually getting fed information. They're growing. Mm-hmm. They feel like I'm just taking up space. Therefore, that's why the truancy happens. That was me. Didn't ever want to go to school. That's why the behavior problems happen. That's why they end up, in court. And, we're in the process of putting together a task force to destroy that pipeline to prison. So we're going to have people in each of their respective fields or their silos that touch these kids' lives on a daily basis, and these people that can make change. That's what we want. We want people that can make the decisions to make change to stop this pipeline to prison. And, I personally, and from the dyslexic community, I want to say thank you for all that you're doing. I mean, that's amazing, amazing work.
Absolutely. I was definitely one of those children, so we need the support.
Absolutely. So today, our guest, I talked to him yesterday on the pre-show, and he is pretty amazing, has a pretty amazing story. He's a founder and CEO of Product Fit. He is a founding and managing partner of a capital equity investment firm, global speaker, has an amazing story, and I can't wait to share it with you. Welcome, Mr. Rich Sanchez.
Thank you, Stephen. It's an honor to be here. I'm looking forward to having a great conversation.
Absolutely. So for our viewers, can you tell us a little bit more about you and why you're now taking the road to advocacy for our children with dyslexia?
Yeah, so I'll dive a little bit into my personal story and also how I became a little bit more proud of dyslexia, because I'll be honest, when I first knew that I was dyslexic, I felt very embarrassed. And, for me, I'll kind of walk you through when I discovered this. So it was actually in college. I was with my girlfriend at the time, who is my now wife, and I was struggling to write this, term paper at the end of the year. We had to write it. And for me, writing has always been an issue. It's always been very, very difficult, very challenging. I take longer than normal. Didn't do so well on my SATs in writing or reading. And so I'm in this, in this room, and my wife, she's noticing these signs, and she's saying, you might be dyslexic, and I didn't know even what that word meant. And so I looked it up and, started to read more about it, and really saw the signs from my past show up. Right. And I started to kind of have this moment where, oh my gosh, like, this is why I struggled so much in school. It's because of this unique way of thinking. Now, at the time, I didn't think it was very unique. I was very embarrassed, and I didn't share with anyone. So only my wife knew about this. And I actually got diagnosed, and, sure enough, I was, but I didn't really share with anyone. I felt very embarrassed. And it wasn't until maybe 2 years ago that I finally opened up about this to coworkers and more people, because I was watching this one video by the Made by Dyslexia organization. It was the video that I think it's called the Dyslexic Sperm Bank, where people are essentially asked, would you want to have a dyslexic baby? And this was in the UK. And so many people said no, right? They're like, no, aren't they stupid? Aren't they this? Aren't they that? And then they walk into this one place where they see all of these dyslexics, famous dyslexics, people like Steve Jobs, Albert Einstein, Henry Ford. And they're like so baffled. They're like, really? These people are dyslexic? And it was when I watched that video that I emotionally broke down. I cried, because of these were the people that I looked up to when I was growing up. I studied computer engineering, and I wanted to be like these people. And there was this feeling that the reason why I emotionally broke down was because I had these role models, or at least I knew that I had a connection to them. I felt like I maybe would have been able to persevere a little bit better in school, because, when I was younger, I going through reading and writing and all that stuff, it was so difficult, but I managed to find a way, and I managed to get through college, and I managed to do all these things. But I just thought back, that's what I wanted to do, is I want to hopefully be now a role model for others, right? For the next generation of dyslexic who just maybe are struggling right now, and just need someone to look up to, and someone that they can personally connect to. And so I actually, as a result of that, I ran in the LA Marathon. I ran it for a charity, for the Made by Dyslexia charity, and I found so much fulfillment and so much joy by being able to spread awareness. And now here I am, just really trying to play a bigger part in this community.
That is. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you for making that conscious choice to go back and help the others around us that may still be struggling with this, that are still stuck and really needing that support. So our title is Life Dreams. So can you talk a little bit more, and we're going to go backwards a little bit back into your high school, middle school, high school years when you were an athlete. Can you tell us a little bit more about that dream and how struggling in education, struggling in school, put a damper on those dreams?
Yeah, I mean, because school was so difficult, my goal or my dream was to, play professionally with soccer, right? So my family, we come from a line of soccer players, and it was almost like that was my path. But at the same time, it was more so a place of freedom, right? A place of freedom from the challenges that I faced in school. And I got really good to the point where in high school, I actually made it to the varsity team as a 14-year-old, right? So I was probably one of the youngest, probably the youngest to make it to the varsity team. But when I got to that level, I started to doubt myself a lot more because of, I guess, the negative self-doubt that I've put on myself ever since, school and the inability to properly read as well as everyone else. And, the 10,000 hours of extra practice that I put into soccer, into becoming this, living up to this dream that I've always wanted, was essentially just, it was gone, right? It was absolutely just taken away from me because I didn't have the true confidence in myself to actually proceed with it. And I got to college, and that's really where I said to myself, I really need to make a change. I need to do something about this and kind of reinvent myself a little bit. But ultimately, yeah, that dream just, was crushed. It was taken away from me. And so now here I am, right, 10 years from college, seeing these new dreams that I've set for myself and actually being able to achieve them by doing other things, right? By finding other ways. And that's really what I want to hopefully share and how I did it.
Right. So the sports analogy is really important here because you talked about the 10,000 hours of practice that you had to put into becoming at the level that you were for being a soccer player. However, being dyslexic, it's not about the amount of effort that we put into it. It's not about the amount of time that we practice. It's about the proper support and the proper therapy to truly teach us how to read, write, and spell properly. And I think that is where we get hung up a lot, especially in the education system, because we hear all you need to do is just read. You want to know how to read? Just read. Or, we blame the parents where we say, well, the child can't read because the parents didn't read to them at a younger age. So, that I love that analogy that I'm drawing here is just because you went and spent 10,000 hours playing soccer, even if we spent 10,000 hours trying to read, we're still not going to be any better if we don't get the proper supports and remediation or therapy.
Yeah, I agree.
What do you think, Kristen?
Well, what I was listening to is thinking about, one, you being a minority male, and you talking about shame and being an athlete. Did you feel like there were places for you to talk about how you felt as you were discovering that you had dyslexia? Just because I know from the kids that I serve, they wouldn't have the confidence to come out and say that to someone that they needed help. Did you ever have conversations in your journey in high school with someone where you were able to open up about this?
No, honestly, I just thought that I wasn't as smart as everyone else, and that was probably my own kind of, again, shyness. I was a very introverted person also. Maybe my dyslexia kind of led to that, but no, I didn't really have that support. And I think had I had it, maybe things would have been a little bit different. Maybe I could have gained that bit of confidence that could have held me, right? So,
well, I mean, it's real hard when you can't read and write in your class and you're around your peers. Your peers know. Your peers, they see your struggles. They see that you can't perform like they are. They know. However, for me, I felt like I was as smart or smarter than most of the people in the room because I knew a lot of information. I could listen to the lecture if the teacher lectured and never had to open a book, right? But I couldn't read that book even if I opened it. But the struggle is having that intelligence, and then you put on top of that knowing that you can't perform like everybody else. I call it believing the lie. The lie is, this is as good as it's going to get. Maybe I am, like Rich was saying, maybe I am as stupid as what everybody else is saying. You start believing that, therefore, you really start becoming that. And, you talk about, did you have, somebody to talk to about that? When I go out and speak in public, I have grown men come up to me and are bawling going, how did you tell my life story? And I'm like, it's all of our stories. I mean, it doesn't matter where you're born, when you're born. When you talk to somebody that has struggled with dyslexia their entire life, I mean, the story is what it is. It's the same, no matter where you're at. No matter if you're born in Africa or Sweden or Europe or Australia, whatever, it doesn't, or when you were born. I mean, that's kind of this shirt, right? Frustrated, and you can't see the bottom of it, frustrated since 1881. And that's kind of a play on words, right? But the frustrated since 1881 because we've known about dyslexia since 1881. And we're still trying to understand how to, or I say we're trying to understand how to support and provide services, but we know how to do it. But since we don't do it, we fill that pipeline to prison, right? So, I mean, that's really the mission. That's the goal, is to make sure that our kids have a choice. Our kids have an opportunity to go on to college, to follow that dream that they had as a child.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to add on to the kind of, the support, I think that's probably one of the things, right? And I kind of refer back to I think there's two different types of support in my belief, right? There's the support that you get from your peers, right? But there's also the support from the people who understand what it is that you have. And I know we talked a little bit about this, Stephen, is, being able to get the support from the people that understand, right? So maybe even talking to, people with neurologists or things that understand what you have and the way you think, and being able to explain it to you in a way that makes you understand it a little bit better, right? Because like I said, I didn't really know too much about dyslexia until my 30s, and I'm still kind of learning it. I'm still understanding a little bit more. All I know really is that it's, in a way, I don't see it as a disadvantage anymore, right? I see it as something that I'm proud of, and it's something that I'm open to sharing, because I just know that when you know of it and how you can use it, your unique way of thinking, you can actually succeed over a lot of different things, right? And but I'm also I think having the support from your peers is important too. And that's a harder part, because your peers won't necessarily always understand what it is that you're going through, right? Because they have a different perspective. And, you know, how do we solve that? I'm still trying to figure that out. Hopefully we can figure it out together.
It's funny we were talking about peers. My wife and I was having this discussion about when you're not supported, when you're failing in school, how that spiders out into all of the other areas in your life and all the other people that you associate with you, right? Your parents, your friends, your teachers, coaches, whatever. And when I first started this show, I started reconnecting with a lot of my old friends from middle school and high school and talking to them about it. And I never realized how me not being successful in school really affected them. By me dropping out of school affected them. By me withdrawing from school affected them. I had no idea that they were hurting because I wasn't there also.
Yeah. I think that's the part that we forget about, the community piece of it. I think all of us go through that moment where you're like, if I wasn't here, would I be relevant? Would it be important? Would my absence mean something? And so I think for you, even having the opportunity to hear that, you know, speaks volume for all of our kids that just would withdraw and give up because that seems easier, or they go to a trade school, which nothing is wrong with that. But just sometimes if you don't have that support, that seems like the only option. And in some cases, that's what the school's pushing you to do, just so that it can be easier temporarily for you.
And what they don't understand is trade school is an option, right? But for, like you were saying, for a lot of kids, it's the only option. But even being a plumber, and this is nothing wrong with being a plumber. I mean, my family was in the trades my entire life. My grandfather and all my uncles were carpenters. You still have to know how to read. You still have to know how to do math. You still have to be able to function in life. So not knowing how to read and spell is not an option.
Yeah, and I think right now where I'm really intrigued is understanding, you know, I have the opportunity right now to essentially mentor product managers, right? So this is kind of going into a little bit what I do, but right now I have the opportunity to mentor people who are looking to get further in life with their careers, also further in life with their businesses. And one of the cool things that I've realized is that now me as a educator, if you will, or someone who can influence, I'm kind of designing the way that I would have wanted to be taught, right? Where you're still getting these core fundamentals. You're still having to, you know, understand how to read, write, all these things. That's not what I'm teaching, but the parallel I'm making is that, you know, as a dyslexic, I have the opportunity to think and maybe even influence the way education is done, right? And I never really thought about that in the beginning, where what if the education system was created by dyslexics, right? You know, how would education be a little bit different or better or worse? I don't know. But right now, what I do know is that the people that I have been mentoring, they've been seeing some crazy results, right? I've been able to help people land dream opportunities in product management. I've been able to help people make connections with new business opportunities, right? And it's all because I'm kind of tapping into that dyslexic way of thinking of how do I use my visual skills? How do I use the things that I have that I'm really good at, right? And couple that with, you know, people's desire for that dream.
So can you talk a little bit about using those skills that you have honed for your business? How you use that when you were working for Disney? Yeah.
So, you know, one of the things that people say is that dyslexics are, for the most part, they're pretty good storytellers, right? We have the ability to take something that's really complicated and actually simplify it, right? And when I was able to have an interview with Disney, when I first got my opportunity to work there, I had to convince people that I was capable of doing the skills. And I guess for me, I've always wanted to stand out, and I feel like I've always had to try to stand out with whatever I did, because that was the only way for me to get around my weaknesses. And so when I went into the interview, instead of just talking through what I've done, I actually brought an iPad. And with that iPad, I was showing the people, the recruiters and the hiring managers, exactly what I've done. So I relied on my visual strengths as well to be able to showcase. And that shift in how I communicated, how I presented, led to me getting that role, right? There was hands down, everyone said, you did something that no one else ever did before. And so by being able to, again, use visuals, use the things that you're good at, bring those into the conversation, I think helps to stand out. So that's one way. Another way is when it comes to connecting, right? I cannot tell you how long it takes me to try to write an email sometimes, right? So Stephen, the email that I sent you, it took almost like 3 hours. It took me so long because I wanted to get everything in there, right? But what I've realized now is actually, I'm doing this, I'm experimenting with this, is I'm actually trying to rely more on video communication, where I can maybe create a quick Loom video or some sort of, just video communication where I can just speak and then I can send that, because I feel like when I can speak it, I don't have to worry about grammar or spelling or anything like that as much, right? And again, I'm not saying that I don't think you should. It should be the only way, but I'm just saying if you're struggling, that can be a way around it as well.
Right. So when I used to be the same way. When I would send an email, I mean, even an email at the length that you sent me, I mean, it was the same thing. It would take me all day to sit there and revise it and go back and forth with my wife about, what does this sound like? Did I misspell all these words? Did all the punctuation, is it correct? And I have to tell you, after remediation, after therapy, now that I can actually spell, it is so freeing. Mm. I was asked to write a review, and I sat down and started typing, and within 15 minutes, I wrote 2 pages. And I was able to use the vocabulary that I have, the bigger words that I have, because I could spell them, right? When you're not able to spell, you're not able to actually show how much knowledge you actually have and be able to send it across in written form. So I agree that we should use technology. We should use other ways, but all of those other ways should be options. I still use audiobooks, although I can read now. I enjoy audiobooks, but it's an option. Right.
For someone who might be your boss or in your journey of adulthood, how do you guys verbalize to them, this is not a weakness, but I do have dyslexia, and this is how I want to be treated, or I still want to have the opportunity? Because I know you mentioned showing and bringing your iPad, which is great, but what if you walk into that interview and you're required to get on the computer right away before you get into the sit-down meeting? Like, what do you do in those scenarios?
So I actually was at an interview and got up and walked out of the interview because we went through all of the face-to-face meetings, and then they asked me to write a paragraph of why I should get that job. I sat there and looked, they put the paper down in front of me and the pencil, and I sat there and looked at it and got it marked out because I wasn't going to allow them to make fun of me. The other thing real quick is I did a test, and I did this just recently. Dyslexia is a disability. It is covered under Americans with Disability Act. So I went through and applied for a bunch of jobs that I'm easily qualified or overqualified for. And every one of them I put I had a disability, I didn't get not one callback. So most of the time we don't tell. We won't because of that. What do you think, Rich?
Yeah, I honestly, I mean, I don't know if I've ever any time shared that I was dyslexic, in interviews and things like that. I think the only time that I did share was my last job that I was at, and that was primarily because we actually had an opportunity to this was just something that a part of the company culture where every employee had about 10 minutes and they can share whatever they wanted. It was almost like their own personal story that they could share. It was a great way to build great company culture. So I had already gotten the job. And that's really when I kind of I stepped forward and I said, hey, this is what I have. And it's been a challenge, but I've been able to overcome it. And I mean, I can say that obviously after the job, people are they were very surprised. That's number one. They were very surprised, but also very considerate, right? Because I know many of the people that I worked with, some of them actually come from education, schooling or teaching and things like that, and so they kind of personally connected with that a little bit more. But I was just very very glad to hear that it wasn't something that they looked at me differently. But at the same time, I don't think I would have done it if I hadn't felt the confidence from seeing other maybe successful dyslexics. Because that for me was probably again, I still felt very doubtful and ashamed. But knowing that there are people out there who are dyslexic and are able to succeed and have succeeded, for me, that was just like this weight of I can do it. It is possible, right? It's possible, and that's all I needed to be able to, have the confidence, step forward, and that's really what I'm trying to do now is just hopefully be a role model for other people, and really kind of, shed some light on areas that maybe people don't know about.
Wow. So really what I'm hearing from this as a practitioner is not only do we need to find a way to identify when you're in a school setting, but if we don't and you become an adult, this still is an issue not an issue, but this is still something that you're still going to be battling. And so we also need to take a look at HR and the way that we even do the employment, because nowadays with technology, I mean, they might expect you to do some sort of writing or oral in the actual application period where you could be a talented candidate and not even make it in the door because you're going down a black hole or you didn't answer something correctly. And if you're honest, that can still also eliminate you.
Absolutely. I mean, we had a coach on the other day, a friend of mine, Spencer Conley, and he talks, he was played football in the NFL, and he also coaches, and he talks about the athlete scorecard. And he goes, the first thing we look at is how fast he runs the 40. It's the same thing with soccer, right? Rich, the first thing they want to know is how fast are you?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So what is the first thing that anybody wants to know when you go into a job situation or an interview? Is what's your education? Mm-hmm. So that's the first thing that knocks you out.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, and I think being able to at least hopefully, and I know there's all different levels of dyslexia, right? That's one of the things I have been learning, that some people their dyslexia is really, really bad, right? It's maybe gotten better, or it's not as bad because they've been training or because they've been helping. And I think really that's where, again, I'm looking forward to helping and seeing in all the different stages of people's journey with this, what support, what help do they really need, right? Because if they're in the early stages and it's really, really it's really hard for them, then what resources can we put there, right? And that's really where like I said, I'm interested to be a part of.
Well, and I got to tell you, I'm glad that we have people like yourself that are willing to turn around and go back looking for others to help. I mean, as dyslexics, once we make it, I'm saying in air quotes, once we make it through the other side, it really is our duty. It's on us to go back and grab as many hands as we possibly can and walk with them and guide them through the other side. Find the appropriate supports for them. Find the appropriate therapies for them. Allow them to be themselves. Allow them to open up and talk about their struggles. With 1 in 5 people being dyslexic, we know somebody in your life that is dyslexic. I promise you. And if you don't, well, nice to meet you. Now you do. I'm dyslexic. So, I mean, that to me is the real mission. The real mission is to not be frustrated anymore, right? Mm-hmm. I don't want these kids and these families to have to go through what me and my family went through. So anything that I can do, anybody that I can help leverage, anybody that I can help be a better advocate and reach out to these families and help them is my mission. And it doesn't matter your race, your socioeconomic status, your sex. I don't care. The fact that reading and spelling is graded so heavily now in our society, we have to make sure that we get that skill to our children and support them by any means necessary. We're losing way too many kids to poverty, to the graveyard, and to prison. And we have to stop it. And it's going to take all of us.
Agreed. Unfortunately, yes, we're in a pandemic, but I think it has brought a real opportunity for schools and for leaders to really look at the way we're sending our kids through school. This is going to be the second year that we're not going to have the statewide testing, right? And so just looking at the way that we're requiring them to succeed and how we're classifying success, because a lot of the tools that you're supposed to be learning in school are really to equip you to be the leader that you're supposed to be in the world. And I think by having conversations like this is going to be helpful, but also challenging those educators to look in the way that they have had this system that has gone on for decades with no changes, right? All we've done is continue to add more stipulations. And so this is now given as a parent even to get involved to see how much you depend on programs like ours, programs like yours that can't come. What happens then? What are you going to do then? What resources are out there? And requiring all of us to get engaged in some level, even if it's not your cause, someone. And if you don't know someone, you're in too small of a bubble, right? And so I think that's probably the charge that we'll see going into the new year.
Absolutely. I couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things that I'm personally truly passionate about is education and just being able to learn. And I always find it so funny. I shared this when I first when I first talked about it with my coworkers that, I'm a person that struggled a lot with reading, writing, and things like that in school, yet I love to learn. And I'm like, how is that possible? But the reason why I think it is possible is because I've always believed that learning, no matter what it is, you're going to have to learn. And if you can, learn from the best, then hopefully you can be the best as well. Right. And so looking at education, I've personally, in the past 6 months, I've learned, through other means. Right. I had courses, online now, YouTube. I learn all the time from all these different resources. And that's only because, again, I'm trying to rely on the strengths that I have. And by being able to learn those in those different ways, I have been able to download now decades of information, right? And I was telling this to Stephen, I never really read books even after school, right? And I know it isn't an area that a lot of people do as well, but I personally I did not like to read books. I just, because I couldn't, it took me a lot longer, and I got I don't know, it wasn't for me, right? But recently I've been reading, or I should say I've been consuming, the material, the content in other ways. And I'm so thankful for it, because like I said, been able to get more information about these different areas that have helped me. Right. So, education is one of those areas that I personally wanted to try to see if I can influence, because I think everyone is different in how they learn. And when you can, in a way, change the model, because in school, it's a one size fits all, so to speak, right? But what if we could change that? What if we could identify and adjust and deliver in the way that we personally need it? I mean, again, I feel like if I had known, or if I had some of these information earlier, maybe I would have been able to achieve some of these dreams sooner. But at the same time, I don't know. And hopefully now I can try to help with that.
Well, Rich, thank you for reaching out. Thank you for wanting to help our children and, go out there and really make a difference. I mean, I can't tell you how much it's needed. I mean, this is an all hands on deck issue. I mean, when we that old saying that it takes a village, I mean, there's no more truth to it. It takes each and every one of us to make sure that our precious children can grow up and be the best version of themselves, and give them the opportunities to go out and do whatever it is that they want to do. And it starts with education. So thank you for all that you do. I'm glad to have you as a warrior out there. I'm glad to have you, working with us. I ask you to come back anytime you want. Let's continue this conversation, and keep doing the great work.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Stephen.
It's awesome.
So at the end of every show, we always like to recommend that if your child is struggling in school and you think that there's a possibility of having a learning disability, don't wait. Get your child tested. The knowing is half the battle. Knowing that what is going on and what types of supports and therapies that we can provide for those students, your child, it's going to make you truly understand what's going on, and it's going to make your child, the frustration level, as my shirt says, frustrated, it's going to make that frustration level come down. It's going to make the frustration that you feel trying to get your child educated come down, because we know what's going on. We have a template on our website, www.empowerdyslexia.info, that you can download to start the testing process. Turn this in, you can download it, fill it out, turn it into your counselor, your school counselor, and this gets the process started. If you need any help, please reach out. We're here to help. We answer emails, we answer phone calls. We're here for you. I promise you that we'll get you connected with whoever it is that we need to get you connected with. So, thank you for tuning in every week. As I say all the time, this is such an honor to do this show. This show is our show. This show is about us. This show is about our people, all of us. And I can't believe that this is going on. We're at 2 years now. This is the second season, and we're getting ready to wrap up the Dyslexia Awareness Month. And I can't be more proud of the advocates that are out there, the parents that are out there in the trenches, and they're constantly out there working. We're here for you. Keep up the great work. And until next time, here's a word from our sponsors.
Learning Ally is a proud sponsor of the Empowered Dyslexia podcast. At Learning Ally, we are always looking for new ways to engage readers struggling with a reading deficit like dyslexia and help them work to their potential. Visit www.learningally.org to learn about the Learning Ally audiobook solution, including which of your students are eligible for access. If you live in Texas, we have great news. The Texas Education Agency provides access to the Learning Ally audiobook solution for all K-12 public and charter school students with reading deficits. Get started today by visiting www.learningally.org/Texas.